two pieces of equipment for the Parks Division. And that is recommended for approval and is covered in the Parks capital budget. Oh, good to know. Item F, we have a resolution to award a contract to D'Ambra for reconstructing the sidewalks at the Public Safety Complex. Item G is ordering the clerk, having the clerk order a notice of public hearing for a resolution to amendments to the town code for solid waste management. And Public Services Director John Schock is here if there's any questions on that item. And we have also item H, which is seeking the council's support for sponsoring the Pawcatuck Rivers Watershed Flood Protection Project with the Southern Rhode Island Conservation District. This is really to allow for potential funding of up to 100% for design and construction on related projects within the town. Item I is a resolution for an award of contract for engineering services for the Old North Road Stormwater Project. That's within the capital improvement program. John is here also to speak on that if the council has any questions. Item J is a resolution for the council to authorize the town manager to send a letter to the Coastal Resources Management Council objecting to an application on file by William and Wendy Conley to construct and maintain a dock essentially. And our harbor master's memo does indicate the reasons for the objection. And he is here also to speak on that if the council would like further information. We have item K, which is our declaration of emergency. And this is a continuation of that. And you'll notice it's much shorter than previous resolutions. And then we have a closed executive session following the regular session. We do have time if the council has any questions on a particular item, we can certainly circle back to that.
Thank you, Derek.
Oh, I do. I looked at the closed executive session minutes and I have some questions about what was included and not included. And so how would I go about giving feedback about that?
So we would address that in executive session
Okay.
when we get there. And what we can do is, before we vote on that, we'll just vote to add discussion on executive session minutes so that we can do that in executive session.
Any other questions on the agenda?
I do. So there's a communication item from Nate Barrington regarding the budget meeting that we had in November. And the presentation wasn't available to the public. And I just wanted to figure out if we could do a better job when we're talking about slides they couldn't see, when they didn't have the presentation. So if we could just figure out a way to provide that to the community who's here and trying to follow along, because I think his email is quite frustrated about just not even seeing the presentation. So I don't know what the future meetings will look like. I know we've changed the monitors a little bit, but going forward, even providing the slides more timely to the community would be helpful.
Yes, and actually, subsequent to that communication, we did provide the slideshow for the next work session. And the slideshow that was shown in the first work session for the CIP was posted with the recording so that people were able to go back and look at it, but certainly understand your point. We'll make sure that we post those presentations prior to the start of the meeting. Thank you.
Other questions about the agenda? Just by way of update, we've had the work session on the proposed ordinance for confining animals to their properties, or, finding the ones that escape, I suppose. what is the next step in that process?
So the next step would be to have this matter placed on an upcoming agenda where it would actually be noticed and discussed and voted on at a public hearing.
Mark, I got a question for you. I had thought that we had previously voted to issue a notice for a public hearing relative to that zoning ordinance or the chicken fowl ordinance. How did we get around to not scheduling the public hearing for that?
I'm not sure if we actually scheduled we scheduled the workshop session that we had to have.
We never voted on issuing a notice for a public hearing relative to that ordinance.
As I recall, we couldn't do that because we had to first notify all farmers and offer them the opportunity for a work session with the town council, which is where we are tonight in that process.
So at a subsequent meeting, we would vote to issue a notice for a public hearing relative to that. Is that how?
That's
we would
my
proceed?
understanding.
Thank you.
So just for the folks who are here and who've been following this issue, that probably means a vote on that at the next meeting, and then 2 meetings later would be the public hearing, we figure.
2 meetings from tonight. So you'd
Meetings.
have the order of notice at the next meeting and then the meeting following that. So you're looking at your first meeting in February, actually.
Okay. So yes, Valentine's Day, if anybody's. All right. Okay. Any other questions on the agenda? All right, very good. We do actually have 2 minutes. We'll have a very quick recess here and then we'll get the regular meeting started. You guys ready? Hello, everyone. Welcome to this meeting of the South Kingstown Town Council. It is Monday, January 10th, 2022. Our first order of business is the pledge to the flag. Please rise and join us. Thank you all. And our land acknowledgement statement. The town of South Kingstown pays homage to the indigenous people and land on which the town is now located. Let this acknowledgement serve as a reminder of our ongoing efforts to recognize, honor, reconcile, and partner with the Narragansett tribe, whose land and water we benefit from today. Will the clerk please take the roll?
Councilman Collins,
Here.
Councilman McKenty,
Here.
Councilwoman Bergner,
Here.
Councilwoman Kelso,
Here.
Councilwoman Rose,
Here.
5-0 here.
Thank you. Item 4 is the approval of minutes of previous meetings.
Rory McEntee, I'll make a motion to approve 4A, B, and C.
No. We were
For a-
to-
I think I have to
I'll
abstain.
retract
from-
my motion. I'll make a motion to approve 4A and B.
Second.
So moved. Any discussion? Jess, did you have anything to say on 4A and B?
Yeah, I'm just trying to get the agenda on my phone because I can't do the computer and have the agenda. So I can't vote on A, right? I can do. I wasn't at the December 13th meeting, so
Okay.
So we can just show that.
I mean, I watched the meeting from home and I obviously have the minutes, but I don't know how that works.
So you, in fact, if you have reviewed them, fine with them, even though you weren't physically present, you have the right to vote on it. It's up to you. Either that or you can abstain, Jess.
Okay, no, I'm fine to vote for that.
All right. Any further discussion? Is there anyone opposed? All right, that motion carries unanimously. 4C is the closed executive session for December.
Okay, just watch the
Jess,
show then.
request that you continue that one to the next meeting, and that way we can have a discussion, executive session, and you can put it on for the next meeting.
Do I hear that motion?
Rory McEntee, I'll make that motion.
Second.
All right, so moved. Any discussion? Anyone opposed? All right, that motion carries unanimously. And that brings us to item 5, the consent agenda.
Rory McEntee, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? Anyone opposed? All right, that motion carries unanimously as well. 6A licenses, our first 5, I believe here, are all related to the Class F 19-hour beverage license applications. So I'll just read the first one. 6A is a resolution granting a Class F 19-hour beverage license to Global Spectrum LP doing business as Spectra Venue Management for the URI men's basketball game on Wednesday, January 19th, 2022, from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. at the Thomas Ryan Center. This is in Kingston, of course. Application by Mario Martone of North Providence. The following ones are for January 20th. There we go. January 22nd, January 25th, February 5th, and that's it. All right, Mario.
Thank you. Attorney Mario Martone on behalf of Global Spectrum, Spectrum Venue Management. I have with me Leah Becky, who is the general manager of the Ryan Center. Just as a housekeeping matter, I did apply for 2 additional Class Fs. As the council may be aware, since the last meeting, I wish I would have had more information to tell you how wonderfully it was going at the Ryan Center. Unfortunately, almost all of the basketball games since that time have been canceled. So at this point, we've only utilized 1 Class F that was on January 2nd. And even that game was actually a replacement team. So I'm more than happy to have Leah tell you how that went. It went fine. There were no issues. But as a result of that, they are trying to reschedule games. So I put in for 2 additional ones, one on the 19th and one on the 20th. And I put that in previously because we weren't sure when the game was getting rescheduled. I can confirm as of tonight that the game will be on the 19th. And so we are not seeking a Class F for the 20th. It would just be for the 19th. I only put them both in just as a placeholder. Also, I know the last time we had talked about this, the idea of this is just to utilize these until we can get a Class J. I have started filling out that paperwork. I spoke to Sue in the clerk's office last week. I had a few questions. So that paperwork is underway. Based on my conversation with her last week, I expect that to be on your next agenda. And I fully expect it'll be able to be advertised. And based on my conversation with her, she thought that optimistically we could potentially get it on for the 14th. But I'll certainly work that out with her. But I just wanted to let you know that we're not sitting on our hands. We are filling out that paperwork. We do have some additional information to get to her, but it is in the process as well.
Just to clarify there, Mike, the next meeting would be in order of notice for a public hearing, at which point we would consider the.
That's
Class J.
correct.
Okay.
So once again, you're talking about the first meeting in February that you'd be addressing this.
Questions for the applicants on these Class F 19-hour licenses?
Quick question for you. I know you were saying that with COVID and everything, there's been reschedules or cancellations. What's the time frame by which a cancellation is made and a makeup is had? Is it like a 48 hours? Is it?
I will let Leah handle that question. I'm not sure.
I wish it was simple as actually knowing that when the cancellations are made, they've been all around the place. Because the reason why these games were canceled was because the actual players, whether it was our team or it was the opponents. So we're finding out last minute. Sometimes they have an opponent, they find an opponent quickly, but it's really ultimately up to whichever team they can find, their schedule. The A10 has to confirm it, and then the NCAA also has a say in it. So it's really been all over the place. I wish, and it was a perfect world to be like, we would know exactly when and how they'd be rescheduled.
So let's say you applied for a Class F on January 19th, and then the game gets canceled and you have it on the 22nd. Your Class F doesn't cover that date, so you're limited. You can't serve liquor on that date. Is that correct?
Yes, yes.
The only way to sort of allow you the flexibility would be the granting of the Class J, and the earliest date we could do that is the first meeting in February. Is that correct, Mike?
That is correct.
The difficult spot.
Yeah, it's a tough
Definitely
one.
understand that.
Thank you.
One quick question. So they have indicated they don't need the one for the 20th. So tonight, would we deny that one? Or would we just take no action? So item 6B is the request for the Class F for the 20th, which Mr. Martone said they do not need. They need the one for the 19th, not the one for the 20th. So what is our action on that?
So you would grant, I assume, A, C, D, and E, and deny B.
Deny it. Okay.
We can withdraw it too, whatever the pleasure is.
Just a question about these Class F licenses. Is there any flexibility? Because I'm a season ticket holder and they have rescheduled the games and things, the AIC game was a substitution game and happened really quickly. Is there any flexibility to say like any, men's basketball team, A10 opponent, blah, 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 or equivalent so that we don't, and on any date, or do we not to exceed 5 licenses? I just feel like it,
Mike? Sorry. Mike.
yeah.
If I could,
Is it from,
so first, I really appreciate the council trying to work with us, and it is obviously unprecedented times. What I can tell you to, I think, assuage your fears a little bit is, at this point, between now and your next meeting, the games that are set are the only games that will happen. Even if a game gets canceled, there's not enough time between now and your next meeting to reschedule one. So what I will do is if I know prior to your next meeting, before I can when I could still get on the agenda, I may be applying for an additional one if there's a makeup game after the 24th. But at this point, so for the games that are set. They are either going to happen or not happen, but there's not going to be any additional ones put in place based on my conversation.
Yep, and it would be a total from the game, which we already had approval on this Wednesday against St. Joe's. That was from the previous meeting. It's a total of 9 home games that, in a perfect world, we would make up a total of 9 home games, which go through the beginning of March.
And Mr. Martone, why don't I suggest as to the January 20th date, why don't you just withdraw it that way?
Sure. Yeah, I'll withdraw the January 20th request.
That way you don't have to act on it.
All right, any,
Motion to approve. Motion to approve item 6A, C, D, and E.
Second.
moved. Any further discussion? Anyone opposed? All right, that motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate all your help.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
All right, 6F is a resolution continued from December 13th, granting theater and dance licenses to the South County Center for the Arts, doing business as Courthouse Center of the Arts. Application by Marianne Almonte, but we want to continue this one again.
Do we need-
Right, we're going to need to continue. They're still working on a whole lot of things. And my recommendation is that you actually continue it to your meeting on February 14th.
Motion to continue item 6F to February 14th.
Second.
So moved. Any further discussion? Anyone opposed? All right, that motion carries unanimously. That brings us to our public hearing, 7A, which is regarding the Class D legitimate theater liquor license application by the same Courthouse Center for the Arts. Also need to continue this one.
I would
same day.
recommend that you continue this public hearing to February 14th.
Motion to continue item 7A until the next town council meeting on February. Oh, sorry, to the town council meeting on February 14th, not the next one.
Second.
So moved. Any discussion? Anyone opposed? All right, that motion carries unanimously. That brings us to item 8, communications. 8E is an email dated December 19th, 2021 from Richard and Donna Serpa, and an email dated January 6th, 2022 from Jonathan Donegan of the South County Trail HOA concerning the status of Michaela Court and completion issues. We've received that. We have talked a bit about it in the work session. Is there anyone here to speak on this matter?
I do have one member on Zoom who would like to enter the meeting.
All
Colleen,
right.
can you bring them in?
Is it Richard or Donna Serpa? Because sometimes
I'm
people
sorry.
raise their hand. They need to come in at comments of interest from interested citizens.
I'm just hard to tell. What do you got here? Jonathan Donegan, yes. And Mike, if you want to give us a little background while we're getting him in. Hello, Jonathan. I'm not sure we can hear you yet. Could you try saying something to us, Jonathan?
Yeah, my name is John Donegan. Can you hear me? I should be unmuted.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Thanks. So thank you for taking the time to hear us out tonight. I do understand, and I was listening to the work session, that the town is not in a position yet to accept the road. And my understanding for that is that there's still a 25 January planning board meeting, which will address the issue now that proper signage has been placed at the end of our road and that all the neighbors have been informed. And so I want to thank you guys for that. That's movement since the issue was not able to be addressed at the 14 December planning board because the developer did not in place the proper signage to inform the public. Also, I want to thank Mr. Rabbit for hearing our issues on the planning board. Our road was plowed by the developer during the last snowstorm. That was probably our primary concern, given the uncertainty of the road's acceptance as a town road and whether or not the developer was still obliged to do that plowing. So that did happen, and we're thankful that that did in fact happen. At this point, I would just like to ask for confirmation that this issue will be addressed at the 25 January Planning Board session, and then ask for, I guess, an estimate, if you will, of if the planning board does approve the change to the approved plan based on the driveway at 31 Michaela, since it was initially in place by the developer in the wrong location. If that is approved, that change is approved by the town planning board, how long after that do we anticipate it would take for the town to approve Michaela Court as a town road? And then as a secondary question, we're uncertain as the residents, are there any other issues beyond the driveway at 31 Michaela? Any other issues that the developers still need to take action on prior to the road being accepted as a town road? And I think that pretty much covers it. Any questions or comments for me, or anything else?
All right, thank you, Jonathan. Mike?
Yeah, if I may, and I am going to ask John Schock to come up also, but in addition to the planning board issue with regard to the January 25th meeting, assuming the planning board approves that, that can move very quickly. There are some other outstanding issues, though, regarding drainage, which Mr. Schock will in fact address. I just want to reemphasize that it is to the benefit of the homeowners association that we resolve these issues to the best of our ability prior to accepting the road. Because you are a homeowners association, because it is a private road, if issues develop subsequently, the homeowners association, not the town, will have to deal with them. So although it's frustrating and it's taking time, it's actually better that we have these issues resolved ahead of time. And I'd like Mr. Schock to address what it is that's actually outstanding at this point.
Good evening. So there's a couple issues in addition to the open space, where I think it's 31 Michaela Court. One is, I believe we're still waiting on the final as-built record drawings, which are the record documents for the subdivision to show that was constructed as designed. And lastly, there is a retention detention pond. If you go into the subdivision on the left-hand side, and the abutting property owner to the south is indicating, and we've got some photographic and video evidence that we've shared with the developer, there's a breakout of stormwater flow from that detention pond. So we're trying to solve that stormwater issue prior to recommending acceptance to the council. And we've been in contact with the developer on a number of occasions to try to do so.
And of course, there's also landscaping that needs to be done, but we can have a bond.
I don't have the list in front of me. I
Right, it's-
apologize.
it's The
So
landscaping, the open space markers we've addressed. As you stated, we need the final Mylar as-built drawings so they can be recorded and provide confirmation about the sprinkler systems being installed. And as you mentioned, the drainage issue. So there are a list of items. My office is involved in terms of the legal aspects of this. John and Richard have been all over this in terms of both emails, letters, and phone calls. We are very well aware of the need and the desire of the residents of Michaela Court to get this done. But again, I want to reemphasize, it's actually going to be to your benefit that we have all of these issues resolved correctly prior to us recommending to the town accept the road, so that it doesn't become a problem for the homeowners association to deal with afterwards. So we're working on them with all due diligence, and we'll do our best to get it done sooner rather than later.
Thanks, Mike. Does the HOA have that list of sort of corrections?
we can provide them if we have, I don't have a contact for the HOA. If they can provide us a contact, we'll gladly pass that along.
Yes, sir. This is John. I can certainly send my personal email and the HOA's email. You should have both of those already based on the communications we provided, but I would absolutely be willing to
We have
re-provide that information?
Manager is indicating we have that information and we will send it to you.
Okay, thank you.
Just so
And,
you're
and
aware of exactly what is outstanding.
we would very much appreciate that. And I would just like to close by saying, once again, thanks for bearing with us with being the squeaky wheel. The biggest concern we had, as I said before, was snow plowing. Clearly, the developer came through on that, and we were satisfied with this last storm, and we're confident that that'll happen going forward. And once we have that list of everything else beyond the driveway at 31, that'll give us some assurance that we have full situational awareness of what remains to be done on our street. And to your point, sir, absolutely, we would not like to inherit anything after, that the developers leave undone. So we certainly do want to have all that addressed prior to it being accepted. And the safety issue of snow plowing has been satisfactorily addressed up to this point. So thank you for that.
All right, thank you. Do I hear a motion on 8E?
I'll make a motion to refer item 8E to staff.
I'll second.
So moved. Any further discussion? Anyone opposed? All right, that motion carries unanimously. 8H is a resolution adopted December 22nd by the Lincoln Town Council requesting the state to increase the frequency of the Rhode Island Municipal Police Training Academy initial recruit training sessions. What would you like to do with that?
I would like to know if we are in agreement with that, if Chief Ewing Chow feels the need for it.
Good evening, everyone. I have read the resolution from the Lincoln Town Council, and historically, many years ago, the police academy used to be 15 weeks, so they were able to do 3 a year. But it's the best of my knowledge that they increased the length of each academy class because of standards, professional standards and training that they needed to meet. I can't speak for the academy, but I think that, my opinion, I'd rather have better trained officers there for a longer period of time, even though they can only do 2 academies a year. Right now, we have 3 recruits in the academy. It just started today, and they'll be there for 22 weeks. It does hinder us a little bit, but we are not behind the 8 ball yet in South Kingstown. So I can't say that it has drastically impacted us to the point where it's crippled us. I can't speak the same for Lincoln, and I'm not sure exactly why they extended to 22 weeks originally, but I can only imagine that there were standards that they probably had to meet to do that.
Thank you, Chief. Do I hear a motion or more discussion?
I'll make a motion to place item 8H on file.
Second.
Moved. Any discussion? Anyone opposed? All right, that motion carries unanimously. 8I is an email dated December 27th, 2021 from Mark Roll, permitting manager of Revolution Wind, extending an invitation for the town council to consult on avoidance, minimization, and mitigation measures for the proposed Revolution Wind project. In the work session, we found out that town staff are already attending these sessions. Do we want to do more than that?
Terry, can we just get a sort of in-depth summary as to what this entails here?
Sure. So Revolution Wind is a project that's proposed. It's a power project proposed 15 miles off the south coast of Rhode Island. It's also about 30 miles off the coast of Connecticut. And it is the 2 companies that are involved are Ørsted and Eversource. Is a 50-50 partnership, and they're intending to construct a wind farm to assist with power for Rhode Island, Connecticut, and Massachusetts. The communities, the coastal communities involved up and down Mass, Rhode Island, and Connecticut have been invited to be consulting partners in order for the company to mitigate or minimize any concerns that any communities might have with regard to this project. It is 15 miles out in federal waters, but they do have to comply with National Environmental Protection Agency standards, and this session has to do with that. And so I'm not sure about other municipalities, but we were very interested in being a consulting party to this process. And we have our Director of Administrative Services, Luke Murray, who's involved with this, who will be attending any meetings that are coming up in terms of this project. If there are concerns raised, they will certainly be presented to the council.
Got it. Thank you.
So that meeting looks to be on February 3rd, and you'll be attending it. And you can potentially report back at a future meeting about.
Yes, definitely. I can, what I'll do is provide a summary report after that session for the town manager to forward to you.
Make a motion to refer item 8I to staff.
Second.
Moved. Any discussion? Anyone opposed? All right, that motion carries unanimously. That brings us to item 9, comments from interested citizens. If there's anybody here in the audience who would like to speak, we'll go to you first. Just come up to the podium, speak into the microphone. After the folks here speak, we'll open it up to folks who are watching online. If you do want to speak through Zoom, you raise your hand by hitting *9 and you unmute yourself by hitting *6. All right, first.
Jonathan Daly LaBelle. So I'm coming here just as I've moved out of town, which I think people know, but if you don't, I have. And so I'm coming here as a non-resident, but as a long-term resident. I lived in South Kingstown about 28 years. And I served on the school committee for 4 years, and my 5 children went through South Kingstown schools. So I know I'm kind of here to talk about like the school facilities, and I don't want to go on, and I'm not going to become a regular participant. After my term ended, I came to a few meetings, but I wasn't a regular attendee, and I don't have any intention to, but I just wanted to come and share my perspective for your whatever it's worth. Yeah, so just where they're talking about closing Wakefield School, I just want to offer, and I am going to go to the school committee meeting tomorrow night. I think it does need to be considered as being a little bit of a different place, and across the country, people try to create what is here. So I think that is something that maybe can I take my mask off? No, okay. I'm sorry. I'm just having a little tough time breathing with this.
Take your time.
All right. Ooh, okay. Yeah, so I will go to the school committee. And, they have to look at things differently. Town council, I know you don't have the, purview with how they make their decisions. You look at more the budget. But I'm hoping that the school committee, will look at what's in the best interest of the children. And so I think that ultimately, I didn't realize I'd have trouble. I'm having trouble with the breathing. So I guess what I'm hoping they'll be looking at is where the children are in town, where the children are who are out of town. And so as they're making the consideration, how many children are going to be impacted by either having bus rides where they don't have it currently, and then the length of the bus rides. So I wouldn't be critical. I've heard some of the chat. I wouldn't be critical of what their process is, and really what your process is. This has been a discussion in town for quite a number of years. And So, I think people who might say that they're not aware this is happening or going on, it has been going on. So people have to be aware it's part of the conversation. So I wouldn't be any critical of that at all. Yeah, and I think just in terms of if that school is closed, then it turns to how will that property get developed? And I don't think that will end up being a very easy situation. When you look at what is happening in town, when they're having the events and things going on, the parking that's there is a critical component. And so if that turns into housing, let's say, or retail, I'm not sure where people will park, how that will be supported. If we're to be offices, that could work because then there would be the parking in the evening. But I'm not sure the demand for office space. So I think just when you're in that planning process and your thought process, to just kind of think about, well, okay, if this is going to become something else, what would that ultimately really end up looking like? Yeah, and I think just the last thing I'll say is, even when I served, and even now, I think it is very valid to look at, if you close a school, whatever school it would be, you are going to gain some efficiencies. And in gaining those efficiencies and that positive, there can be a positive budget impact. So I think that's very valid to factor that in. But really, as you're looking at which school it could be, hopefully that is looked at to see what would be what would gain people the most. I'm sorry, I'm a little disjointed. It's throwing me more than I thought. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Jonathan. All right, other comments from folks here? Seeing none, do we have any takers online?
I do. I have one participant. Colleen, can you bring them in? Roberta Mulholland.
Hi
Roberta,
again,
you're on.
all. I just wanted to follow up. I had my hand up again to correct something that was said when one of the council members asked about whether somebody's cow with the ACO think that was a farm. You were told that a farm, it just has to be 5 acres. That's not the definition in the ordinance. The ordinance is much more specific than that. And I think the council is entitled to actually have the correct definition given to them. Not everyone that has 5 acres and a cow is a farm under our ordinance. It's agricultural land of at least 5 acres in area together with built buildings upon which agricultural operations are conducted. Agricultural operations is specifically defined. Any commercial enterprise which has as its primary purpose horticulture, viticulture, viniculture, floriculture, forestry, dairy farming, or aquaculture, or the raising of livestock, fur-bearing animals, poultry, or bees, blah, blah, blah. Okay, it's a commercial enterprise. Somebody with a cow in their backyard because they have 5 acres is not a farm. So I don't think that you asked the correct questions. You weren't given the correct definition. So that's one thing. And the other thing is what Senator Sosnowski said about proof of ownership. That's very important. And I'm glad that she highlighted that when you have a farm, people drop things at your farm. They drop off animals, they abandon animals. We had an issue with a neighbor who had 3 sheep loose. Those sheep were wandering around, I guess, until they found their way to our farm. We contacted the neighbor who knew that they were missing and wasn't concerned about them and really didn't want to come and get them. We asked him nicely to please come and get them. He was able to catch 2, but he couldn't catch the 3rd one. And he just said, I'm going to leave it here. I'm just going to leave it here. Let the coyotes eat it. Well, we're not going to do that. But what I'd like to know is if you pass the ordinance, will I have an ability to call the ACO and make it her problem to catch that sheep? because we could not catch that sheep. Our flock of sheep kept away from that sheep for a year, but we ended up feeding it, couldn't get near it. It was wild because it wasn't taken care of properly to begin with. So that's a concern. If that happens again and you pass this, will I be able to call the ACO and let her and whoever she can get come and get the sheep? Because we really would have liked not to have it here. Again, proof of ownership, you need to address it. Secondly, on the fines and enforcement, this is really important. Tara was talking about somebody who has a cow that gets out. Clearly, this is someone who is an habitual offender. She wants the tools to deal with an habitual offender. But I'm going to ask again, what about the people that have the cat that's constantly on Main Street? And this person who owns the cat publicly states on Facebook that the cat is so well known, the ACO brings the cat home to her. Now, can I find where that person has been cited? That sounds like an habitual offender. Apparently it's been going on for years. Can I find where they have been summoned to court? Because that's what I worry about with any ordinance enforcement. If it's not going to be equal across the board, how do we know that the day someone trespasses on our farm and lets one of our American guinea hogs out, that one doesn't get on the street, and that's a missing one? How are we going to deal with that? So I really wish that you would consider, again, if you exempt farms, it's not just somebody with 5 acres and a sheep or a goat, because we know those are very popular now. And finally, on the wind farm thing, what I'd really like to see our town council do when that's an issue is ask our many commercial fishermen in South Kingstown for some input on that. We have a lot of commercial fishermen in this town. They pay a lot of property taxes. And I think it behooves us all to ask for their input and what they would be concerned with about that. So again, I think that you are entitled to have the real definitions when you ask for them from the solicitor. And so I hope, and I hope you also look them up and don't just rely on the solicitor. So thank you so much. Appreciate the time, appreciate you holding that work session for farmers.
Thank you, Roberta. Very good timing. A lot of good points there for us to consider as we get towards that public hearing in a couple meetings. Any other?
I do not see any other hands raised, Council President.
Again, if you're watching online via Zoom and you'd like to make a public comment, you have to hit *9 to raise your hand if you're on your phone, or just click the little hand icon on your Zoom screen.
I do not see any hands raised.
All right. Any comments from council members tonight?
I just wanted to follow up with something that Roberta Mulholland just said about talking to the commercial fishermen. Do we have a way to contact them? I know the harbor master was a newly expanded position. Is that something that we could ask the harbor master? Maybe they have contacts, or is there something that comes to mind to sort of meet that excellent suggestion?
Yeah, we can certainly look into how we can reach out and publicize that the town is a consulting party on this and seek out some input. And yes, between the harbor master and the director of administrative services, we can certainly find a way to glean information from our commercial fishermen community.
I will say, as somebody who went through the permitting process in a tangential way for Block Island Wind Farm, they reach out to the fishing community directly for input. And it's, but obviously helps to reiterate that at the town level. Any other comments from council members? All right, very good. That brings us to the town manager's report.
Thank you. A couple of items. that might not be on the manager's report, but let's start with the next council meeting, which is January 24th. As the council is aware, the governor signed the executive order 2201, which allows for remote public participation in meetings. This will be the last meeting that's held hybrid, effective tomorrow. We'll be going to fully remote meetings. That executive order expires on February 4th, unless the governor continues to extends it beyond then. So until that date, we will keep the council apprised, but all public meetings will be held remotely via Zoom. All boards and commissions have been notified, and we've put out a press release of that nature so that the public is also aware of that change. Just a reminder also, on January 24th, that is the work session with the Planning Board and the Recreation Commission with regard to the Saugatucket Park project. Couple of other items that are not on my report, but because of the extreme cold forecast for the next 24 to 48 hours, we have posted our public warming center notice and have notified Rhode Island EMA to make sure they update the South Kingstown information. We have the libraries, the Neighborhood Guild, and the Senior Center open during their regular hours for as public warming centers. Of course, protocols for COVID-19 do apply. I also have an update on the American Rescue Plan funding. I know the council's aware that we did go out to bid for consulting and project management services for those funds. We anticipate having a recommendation to council at the next council meeting to continue to move that along. If there's anything else on the manager's report, if anyone has any questions.
So I know that the executive order relates to the meetings, but we used to have a executive order for employees who are out sick with COVID, and we did away with that when we moved away. And is there any reason to revisit that for town staff and town employees who might be sick? Or, I don't want people, this is not the time to come to work, because COVID is really one house or one person away from you. So I don't want people to feel like if they don't have time that they're coming to work and then sending us down the line of waves of sick. So do we need to bring that back? How would we bring that back? Is it necessary?
So at this juncture, we've had multiple conversations on this particular item. You will recall that the federal government had in place a 2-week allowance for an administrative leave for COVID. Beyond that, the town of South Kingstown extended that admin leave for another several months. I don't recall exactly how many months, much longer than most other municipalities had done. At this stage, we are not recommending that. However, depending on how the Omicron variant continues, we know that, or we're told that the peak is expected soon, and we'll continue to re-examine that. But I understand your concern. We certainly don't want our employees coming in to their work environment if they are symptomatic. We also know that the town does issue sick leave to all employees, all full-time employees. Luke, I'm not sure if you want to comment further on this as a personnel.
Yeah, we're definitely seeing the effects, right? The good thing is with the new guidance from RIDO and the CDC, we're seeing people out for less time. So now it's 5 days. And typically, if they do get infected, unfortunately, they're out those 5 days. And if they're not symptomatic, they can come back. Typically after that, they're not going to get infected again. We are seeing breakthrough cases, unfortunately. I think what we're seeing is the trend in the state. So we're likely to see the peak this coming week, and it will start falling off. We have allowed all employees to use whatever accruals they have, including sick time, which we allowed a fair amount of. So we haven't really received a lot of pushback. Most people have, followed the rules and, understand that that's what their sick time is there for. And we haven't run into many cases where they have exhausted those accruals. So, but we'll keep you advised.
I have one follow-up question there. The declaration of emergency that we keep extending, does that give the town manager the authority to implement those protocols if needed until our next meeting when we would yea or
Yes.
nay, right? So
That's correct.
Terry, you have the authority to extend someone's sick time under this declaration of emergency, if I'm remembering correctly, when this all began.
That's correct.
Okay. And
With
then,
notifying the council immediately of any decision that,
right.
that is
And
made
then the
in that
next
regard.
meeting that the council has, that whatever executive decision you made, we would ratify. There's the word, Rory. Thank you.
For instance, the open meeting, that executive order was issued last week. The recommendation was to go fully remote following this meeting. If the council chose to have that discussion this evening, you could obviously have changed that if you wanted to have meetings.
So if there is an employee that has reached whatever limit they have and has contracted COVID, the town manager can
correct.
make a decision about their employment status or their pay status.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Other questions for Jess?
Sorry, I don't know if you guys can see me or what happens when my hand is raised. So I don't know a lot about this, but it's my understanding that people can collect TDI in cases where they're out of work due to COVID. Is that something that's available to, like, I know teachers can't collect TDI. Can town staff collect TDI if they are out for an extended absence due to COVID?
Right. Jessica, I was just going to agree with you. Town employees do not get TDI.
Other questions? Town manager's report. One issue I just occurred to me as we we're sitting through things. I know the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee had talked to us a couple meetings in a row about a complete streets ordinance. I was wondering, has that been proceeding? Are we going to see that at some point?
I can have Luke speak to that. He is the liaison for the VPAC committee.
So at the last meeting, I encouraged them to kind of follow through with the master plan, which they've agreed to do. They've tabled it for now on the complete streets to really follow up on the core mission, which was to get through the master plan and really establish the need. And with the hopes that that becomes sort of the adopted plan with citizens' input. They didn't really have the opportunity to get that citizens' input they would have hoped for during COVID. Hopefully we get through the next peak and we can get back to some normalcy. So they're tracking on that. They expected to get back to the complete streets in a few months. We'll be working on that.
All right, let's move on to the solicitor's report.
Okay, a couple of items just to bring you up to date on. As you all know, during the work session for about a half hour, our manager search consultants were with you and presented a report. For those who weren't there, I'll just give you a brief synopsis. As of the filing deadline on January 3rd, there were 20 applicants. They come from 10 different states. 7 of them are from Rhode Island. The consultants are in the process of going through those applications, vetting them, and deciding which ones merit further review. Those individuals will be provided with essay questions. I think they said 3 essay questions, which in some way or another are tailored to the needs here in South Kingstown. The applicants will have 10 days in which to respond to those essay questions over a period of a couple of weekends. When they come back, again, they will be reviewed by the consultants, vetted. They will then provide all that information to you. They're looking to set up a meeting with you the week of February 7th so that they can go over all the applicants with you. You can jointly decide at that point who you'd like to interview, perhaps all of them, perhaps some of them. That'll be your discretion. Overall, the idea is to conduct the final interviews at the very end of February, beginning of March, so that you have a manager in place sometime thereafter, depending on the person chosen, job commitments, wherever they may be at this point. So are there any specific questions that anyone wants to bring out or add?
I just thought the interviews for the town manager applicants were going to be the week of the February 21st.
Right, February 21st would be the first set of interviews. Right.
Right, so we could. I think you went back, you pushed it out 1 week. I think they moved it up.
I see what you're saying.
You just-
Gotcha. Yeah, I think the idea is we wanted to be finished by March 1, if we could be. Okay, the second, if there are no other questions on that. The second item, just want to let the public know that you approved an executive session based upon the advice from my office to settle the matter involving the Garrett Homes LLC application. Basically, that's the dollar store, which had received planning board approval, a recommendation to the zoning board to grant a special use permit. When it got to the zoning board, the special use permit failed on a vote of 3-2 in favor. You need 4 votes in order to grant a special use permit. They filed a timely appeal upon reviewing the facts of the case and the likely outcome in court. It was our advice that you authorize us to enter into a settlement agreement. We did so. That settlement agreement has in fact been signed and posted. It basically requires the applicant to follow all the recommendations and conditions that were imposed by the planning board. That includes such things as building a sidewalk and diligently working with the state to convince them to put in a crosswalk and one of those traffic signals that you push when you cross the street. So just letting you know that all of that was accomplished and it has been publicly posted.
Thank you, Mike. Questions on the solicitor's report? All right, very good. That brings us to appointments. Yeah, for item B.
I'd like to appoint Meg Foy Anderson to the 300-year celebration committee.
Second.
So moved. Any discussion? Anyone opposed? That motion carries unanimously. And seeing no other appointments tonight, we will go to item 13, new business. 13A is a resolution authorizing the town clerk to advertise for order of notice, a public hearing to consider proposed amendments to the town code, chapter 10, motor vehicles and traffic, as follows. Article 1 in general, boulevard and street stop signs designated. This would, stop signs shall be placed at the following intersections, and vehicles traveling on the first named street shall stop before entering the second named street. And it would add Hopkins Lane at Kingstown Road traffic to stop on Hopkins Lane at intersection.
Rory McEntee, I'll make a motion to approve 13A.
I'll second.
So moved. Any discussion on this? All right, anyone opposed? That motion carries unanimously. 13B, a resolution requesting the legislators of the town of South Kingstown to introduce legislation in the 2022 session of the General Assembly relative to a proposed amendment to the Rhode Island General Laws to allow for the appointment of 3 alternate members to the town zoning board of review, so as to always have a quorum available and to provide a path to zoning board membership as follows, and I will not read all that.
Rory McEntee, I'll make a motion to approve 13B.
I'll second.
So moved. Any discussion?
Just a question about that since we went through the work session really quickly. So we're sending this to our state delegation, asking them to submit this legislation. Do they know about it? Have we spoken to them already and they're aware of this is coming and they're willing to do it?
So I've never seen a state legislation for a community not act on what the town council requests. The resolution and the proposed bill will be sent to them by Terry's office, asking them to introduce it. And it's generally, there's a whole process that's followed. It's pretty routine.
Is it likely to happen?
Most municipal bills, my experience, rarely do they not pass because they just affect the particular municipality. So I mean, there's no guarantee, obviously, with the General Assembly, but generally speaking, they do. Oh,
Me or Michael? Me.
It is, okay. Just try to be more conscientious about our microphones. All right. So any further discussion on item 13B? Anyone opposed? Or do we have a motion? I can't even remember, to be honest. Okay, we do. Very good. So that motion carries unanimously. That's all right. 13D, a resolution authorizing an award of bid to Howard Johnson of 1978 Kingstown Road in Peacetown for the purchase of one front mount mower and one six-wheel utility vehicle in accordance with all bid specifications in an amount not to exceed $32,400, including trade allowances of $13,000. Further described in a memo from the interim director of Parks and Recreation to the interim town manager dated January 4th.
Rory McEntee, I'll make a motion to approve 13D.
Second.
So moved. Any discussion? Anyone opposed? All right, that motion carries unanimously. 13F, a resolution authorizing an award of bid to Dambra Construction of 80 Center of New England Boulevard in Coventry for the sidewalk improvements, the public safety complex, including labor, supplies, and all appurtenances, an amount not to exceed $16,500, including contingency, further detailed in a memo from the facility superintendent to the interim town manager dated January 4th.
So quick question on this, Mike. So I know it involved in the settlement with the dollar store there that there was going to be, I think the sort of crossway across from the older living area across the street. Now, this sidewalk, is this sort of like a neighboring that across the street from the different area?
This sidewalk directly abuts the town property. They would not be adding a sidewalk to the town public safety property. It would be down in front of the property where the development would be. So they would not be asked to put in or repair town property.
Got it. So this plot of land is adjacent to that area?
That's correct. So the police station is next door, essentially.
Understood. Thank you. Rory McEntee, I'll make a motion to approve 13F.
I'll second.
So moved. Any further discussion? Anyone opposed? All right, that motion carries unanimously. 13G, a resolution authorizing the town clerk to advertise for order of notice of public hearing relative to proposed amendments to the town code, chapter 15, solid waste management, article 1 in general, and article 4, mandatory residential recycling relative to private haulers that exclusively collect recyclables other than mixed recyclables, as shown on exhibit 1 attached to the agenda. Further described in a memo from the Public Services Director to the interim town manager dated December 6th. Well, it is just an order of noticing. It's coming.
Rory McEntee, I'll make a motion to approve 13G.
Second.
So moved. Discussion?
I just have a question, why this wasn't part of the consent agenda, but most of our order of Just wondering.
Deb, I can't hear you.
So I just asked why this was not part of our consent agenda. The order of notice for a public hearing generally appears as part of the consent agenda, and this one did not. So I was just wondering if there was an exception involving this matter.
So this, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this is a resolution amending an ordinance. And I don't believe there's the need for a public hearing. Am I wrong, John? Is this?
I think I don't want to speak for the clerk because she's not here. Typically, I think you're right. orders for advertisement on consent agenda. Why? I don't know.
Just a clerical oversight, then there's nothing special
I
about
don't
it.
think this is a big issue to deal with.
All right, question answered. Thanks.
Any other discussion? All right, anyone opposed? All right, that motion carries unanimously. 13H is a resolution authorizing the Public Services Director to proceed on behalf of the town as a sponsor in the planning phase of the Wood Pawcatuck Rivers Watershed Flood Protection Project with the Southern Rhode Island Conservation District, shown on Exhibit 2 attached to the agenda, as further described in a memo from the Public Services Director to the interim town manager dated December 3rd. Sure. Who would like to speak to this?
So the town was approached by the Southern Rhode Island Conservation District to see if there was interest to participate in a detailed study that's being sponsored and funded by the Natural Resource Conservation Service. Southern Rhode Island Conservation District already did a preliminary study. NRCS wants to, I guess, drill down, for lack of better terms, to do a more detailed study and more hydraulic analysis to see if there are projects that merit improvements to mitigate some of the flooding in the Pawcatuck. The Pawcatuck portion in South Kingston is pretty much at the headwaters. What is westerly, I think if people recall, Westerly got some severe flooding because of the impacts from up gradient communities. So this is an effort to try to reduce and mitigate flooding along the Pawcatuck all the way from South Kingston down to Westerly. And this is no cost to the town. We can opt out at any time. Potentially we have 100% funding for design, and there's a number of projects that are listed for remediation.
Thanks,
Answer your
John.
question.
Any other questions for John? All right, do I hear a motion?
Rory McEntee, I'll make a motion to approve 13H.
So moved. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none. Is there anyone opposed? All right, that motion carries unanimously. And that brings us to 13I, a resolution authorizing an award of contract to Green International Affiliates of Westford, Mass. For Old North Road Stormwater Engineering Services, an amount not to exceed $81,350, which includes a contingency of $10,000, further detailed in a memo from the Public Services Director to the interim town manager dated December 23rd.
Rory McEntee, I'll make a motion to approve 13I.
I'll second.
And we have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? Anyone opposed? Right, that motion carries unanimously. 13J is a resolution authorizing the interim town manager to send a letter to the Coastal Resources Management Council expressing the town's objection to application file 2021-10-024 by William and Wendy Conley to construct and maintain a residential boating facility at 194 Winchester Drive, based on the advisory of the Waterfront Advisory Commission, further described in a memo from the Harbor Master / Natural Resource Officer to the interim town manager dated January 6th. Couldn't we have the Waterfront Advisory?
We have Mike Stack,
Yeah.
our harbor master, here to speak on this.
Evening.
Good evening.
Did you just want a quick synopsis of what the issue is with that the Waterfront Commission brought forward? So in your pet, where you provided a graphic, an overview of the proposed dock overlaid on the existing mooring field. So the Coastal Resource Management Council has two items which the Waterfront Commission, and I concur with, run contrary to their rules and regulations. First and foremost is that the dock as presented would actually be constructed inside a CRMC approved and town designated mooring field. And secondly, the proposed dock does not conform to their rules, specifically their 50-foot setback requirement, which is, happy to read it, but that's in the memorandum as well. So in short, there's supposed to be a 50-foot buffer between docks and the mooring fields. And so this dock does not meet those requirements.
Good question here. So if the applicant here wanted to revise their application to, which would allow for the 50-foot setback, would this get approved by the Waterfront Advisory Commission?
So in normal circumstances, I would say yes. There's some extenuating circumstances in that the way that the mooring field is drawn, it does not appear that it's going to give them a 50-foot setback, because you would need the maximum that the CRMC allows generally is a 50-foot dock. They're actually seeking a variance on this dock for an additional 20 feet over that 50 feet. The mooring field was drawn and designated by the town based on CRMC's regulations back in the early 90s. And subsequently, the harbor management plan has been updated, and CRMC has affirmed that that harbor management plan, and including the designated mooring fields, are in compliance. So there's some issues if they come back. Generally, the Waterfront Commission will approve docks that are 50 feet or less, because that's CRMC regulations. In my experience.
So it sounds like, based on how the moorings are located in this specific area, there's no way for which this applicant could revise their plan here to fit within the regulations to get approved. Is that correct?
I have a call and an email into CRMC. I've yet to receive a response to see what options are available. And I don't know the process. This is a public notice, so I don't know if CRMC just submits the public notices without reviewing them, or if they review them and see no issue and then put them out for public notice.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Just something to add here. As you know, Waterfront Advisory is advisory to the council. The public notice, CRMC is the final deciding factor on this, whether or not the town objects. But the CRMC allows these public notices with a deadline. So what the Waterfront Advisory Commission is really looking to do is to make sure, if the town council wishes to be on the record, that we submit something before the deadline. There have been instances where applicants have reapplied with revised or revised their plans. Again, it sounds like that might be difficult in this scenario, but that's up to CRMC to decide. The council's decision really is whether or not you want to weigh in with CRMC objecting to what's proposed right now. I think it's a January 13th deadline.
It is, yeah. We actually had to ask for an extension because they wanted it just before Christmas, and Waterfront Commission does not meet in December. And it was about a month. I think it came out the end of November, and they wanted it right before Christmas. So they granted an extension to the town so that the town could weigh in any comments, and that's due on the 13th. That's correct, sir.
Got it. Thank you.
You, Mike. Any further discussion? Do I hear a motion on 13J?
Rory McEntee, I'll make a motion to approve 13J.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? Anyone opposed? All right, that motion carries unanimously. Item K is a resolution extending the town's declaration of emergency adopted at an emergency session on March 15th, 2020, and subsequently renewed on a monthly basis, as shown on Exhibit 3.
Rory McEntee, I'll make a motion to approve 13K.
Second.
So moved. Any discussion? Anyone opposed? All right, that motion carries unanimously. That does bring us to the end of the public agenda. So I'm going to have to ask all you folks to leave. Thank you for coming tonight, and we'll see you at a future meeting. Yes, we will need that.
Well, I'll make a motion to move to closed executive session pursuant to, excuse me, Rhode Island GL 42465A5 to discuss matters related to the acquisition or lease of real property for public purposes or the disposition of publicly held property wherein advanced public information would be detrimental to the interests of the public.
And if you could add to that, Deb, discussion of the executive session minutes of December 13th, 2021.
We'll add the discussion of the December 13th, 2021 closed executive session minutes.
Do I hear a second? So moved. Discussion? Anyone opposed? All right, that motion carries unanimously. And let's turn off our recording.
Can I ask that Councilwoman Rose leave the existing Zoom session and then log back into the executive session Zoom meeting, which is in your email?
I will do that now. Thank you.